law that I think is in legislation or is in the midst of being passed and probably will be passed in New Jersey because it's got bipartisan support as well as the support of the governor. And this law is, I'm not saying that the law, okay, I am actually think that some of the groups, and this law is basically aimed at closing down Combat Zone Wrestling and Jersey All Pro Wrestling. It's got a lot of legal wording. And I am not necessarily. I don't know if I'm opposed to shutting them down. I think that they have the right to do it. They have the right to be. I think that the government has the right to regulate those groups, but whatever regulation they do has to be consistent throughout the industry. If it's, the only stuff and the only stuff of Combat Zone Wrestling that I've ever seen is I saw some clips of it on a television show, which probably isn't fair, and I've seen the Combat Zone wrestlers wrestle when they wrestle for Big Japan. I've seen a couple of the clips, and to me, it's bad wrestling. It's as far as timing's bad. The guys aren't very well trained, if trained at all, that type of stuff. But because it's bad wrestling, they still should go under the same. The same regulations as every other form of wrestling. But anyway, let me read some more of this. Okay, the legislature finds and declares that because its principal purpose is to entertain without injuring or disabling one of the participants, professional wrestling should be excluded from this system of regulation. They're trying to explain why they're going to regulate boxing, wrestling. Okay, so that means like amateur wrestling, extreme wrestling, which is Combat Zone and all this, kickboxing, or combative sporting event. They are being regulated by the Athletic Commission, whereas professional wrestling is not. Now, of course, obviously, the principal purpose of any pro wrestling that I'm aware of is to entertain without injuring or disabling. I mean, there's no attempt. Do you know of any? I don't even know of any sport where there's an attempt to injure or disable.
I don't think so.
It's a byproduct that sometimes happens in like a combat sport like a karate or boxing or kickboxing or even in a UFC type of event. Hey, what am I saying? Even in professional wrestling, the fact that there's probably more serious injuries in professional wrestling these days than in any of the other ones I just mentioned, except for maybe football. Let's see. The legislature further finds and declares because its principal purpose is to entertain by having its participants intentionally cause bleeding or perform acts which reasonably could be expected to cause bleeding. Extreme wrestling should be distinguished from professional wrestling. The emphasis is on dangerous stunts that cause injury, and bleeding makes extreme wrestling potentially harmful to its participants. Furthermore, the atmosphere of base violence and depravity that prevails at an extreme wrestling event has a deleterious effect on children and young adults. Moreover, the liberal bloodletting that characterizes many extreme wrestling events constitutes a public health hazard, not only for the participants, but also for the spectators. Is there a health hazard to the spectators?
I don't know. I've seen chairs get thrown and hit a spectator.
No. It says the liberal bloodletting.
From the blood? There's no one's ever even been, never a wrestler that has bled in a match with another wrestler has ever got it.
I certainly am not. There's certainly no medical cases of guys in double juice matches having HIV, and God knows that in the 80s we used to hear it was going to happen all the time, and it never did. Mm-hmm. As far as we know, it never did.
And anyway. If it doesn't affect the guy you're in the ring with that you're bleeding with, I don't see how it would affect the fans.
Yeah. So anyway, for all of these reasons, extreme wrestling should be subject to strict state regulations. Because the creativity of those who seek to profit from vulgarity cannot be underestimated. Now, I love that line because there's so much truth to that. Okay, but I think that at various times that hits WWF, WCW, and ECW at various times. Probably is strong, if not stronger, than any of these groups. That's strong. Maybe not stronger. But anyway, the state athletic control board should be given a proper amount of latitude to regulate the attendant excesses of extreme wrestling that presently exist and could be incorporated into extreme wrestling events in the future. The thing is that like, how does ECW? WCW right now is like a lot of skits, and I think when they do live shows, it's a lot of wrestling. WWF, they do blood, but it's not. They don't do blood that much on house shows, but they do blood on TV, fairly regularly now. And but ECW does the objects, and they all do the objects in hardcore matches anyway. And
maybe the point is excessively.
But
I guess you'd have to define what excessively is. Every match on every show. Every show, once a month.
Yeah. Okay. But once it's done, it's done. I mean, if it's one match a show, and that one match is just like a hardcore brawl where you go all over the place and hit people as hard as he chairs, I mean, then it should be regulated. I'm just thinking it all needs to be regulated together. All I can say. It goes, the board shall promulgate rules that differentiate an extreme wrestler from a professional wrestler. Okay, this is the difference. An extreme wrestling event from a professional wrestling event. If a person is unsure whether he or she is an extreme wrestler, or if a promoter is unsure whether the event being promoted is an extreme wrestling event, it shall be the obligation of the person and the promoter, as appropriate, to consult the board for a ruling. That's scary. All right, this is the big one. An extreme wrestler or promoter of an extreme wrestling event who fails to apply for the required approval, permits, and licenses, or a promoter of an extreme wrestling event who knowingly admits a person under the age of 18 to an extreme professional wrestling event shall be subject to a civil penalty of not less than $5,000.
Wow.
So
no kids under 18.
No kids under 18. Okay, we got Tom on the line. We'll get to Tom in just. I just want to read more of this stuff, and we'll get Tom Zenk on the line. Also, all licenses. Okay, that's not important here. And okay, here we go. This is the key. Right here. No extreme wrestling event shall be held by a promoter who has been licensed pursuant, unless the promoter is... Okay, basically what they do is that they have to promote an extreme wrestling event. This is where they're going to get shut down. And this is what the whole idea of this bill is anyway. They have... let me see if I have it here. Okay, basically the promoter has to give at least 20 business days before holding the event, notify either the Director of Public Safety in the municipality where the event is supposed to take place in some form, with such detailed information as the board may prescribe of the proposed holding of the event, and receive approval in writing thereof. In other words, you've got to go to a local official at least 20 days before the show and get approval in writing from the local official, or else you can't do the show. So that's where they're getting shut down. They also... if you're an extreme wrestling promoter and you give out comp tickets, you're going to love this. Here we go. The identity of all recipients of... This is only for an extreme wrestling, not for professional wrestling. The identity of all recipients of complimentary tickets... shall be included within the quarterly report on complimentary services required pursuant to... Basically, you've got to list everyone who gets a comp.
A quarterly report?
Yes. Let's see. You also have to have 2 qualified physicians and an ambulance at the matches. So in other words...
That's another big one. That's expensive.
That's a big one when you're drawing 100 people, right?
Yep.
So anyway, it's an attempt to legislate this out of existence, but not touch the big guys. And we've got Tom Zenk on the line, the former Z-Man from World Championship Wrestling. And how have you been doing lately?
Pretty good. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing really good.
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're more than welcome. We heard great reports from you from the wrestling show, The Law in Toronto.
Yeah, Jeff Merrick.
From Jeff Merrick, yeah.
Yeah, good guy. He and Dan, right?
He says he told me you've got to get Tom Zenk on. And I go, hey, I know Tom Zenk.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, really. So what have you been doing with yourself since getting out of professional wrestling?
Well, right now I'm managing a multinational corporation here in Minneapolis, the production arm. I'm in the production field, and I've got a very good pulse from my coworkers at work about the wrestling scene.
So do you watch it pretty regularly, or just time to time?
Yeah, once in a while. Just no one's been talking about it lately, because it's not really hot. But about a year and a half ago, it was really cooking there. So a lot of guys around work would talk about it. Big fans, being former Z-Man, they always have a million questions. But not too hot right now.
Really? What do you think WCW probably don't hear much about these days, right?
No, you don't hear anything about that. It's only Vince's show. Not much about WCW. There's no buzz about it. It's really worn off from what it was.
Now, you of course spent many years with WCW. Kind of, your plight was very similar to a lot of wrestlers' plights in WCW in that they're pushed up to a certain level, and then no matter what happened, you don't get past that level.
Yeah.
And you've been out of it now for many, many years, and it really hasn't changed much either.
Yeah.
In that regard, I mean, it's different. Different bookers come and gone.
Yep.
But WCW has always been one of those things where it's just it's you can make good money.
Yep.
And you can get good exposure, but there's that glass ceiling that you hit your head on, and you're never, and some guys who have left, I mean, we talk about, the obvious one like Steve Austin and Mick Foley, who were there the same time you were.
Yeah. Hall and Nash, they left too.
Well, Hall and Nash were earlier in their career, but yeah, Scott Hall wasn't too bad. Then Nash was a little too green, but they left. They went somewhere. Now, if you go somewhere and then come back, they'll push you as a superstar. But somehow they are unwilling to create their own superstars, I guess. With a few exceptions.
I don't know if they don't know how to. I can't believe that they're that naive that they don't know how to push stars. They don't create anyone. It's a lot cheaper than buying back guys that are overpriced. I mean, where are their big money stars now, the $1 million guys? I don't see anyone other than Ric Flair, and I call him the Bishop because they crap on the belt, and who do they give the belt back to? Flair, right?
Yeah.
There's no star quality people that I see there. How come Vince, the big machine, WWF, they use you right. They turn you into somebody. He knows how to do it. WCW, they're floundering. They're the laughing stock. It pays good as long as you keep your mouth shut and it's called in the business you play the game like a surfer. You're just riding the wave. Keep your mouth shut, do what you're told, and that's that. The guys that are hired, they're hired for a spot, and they never, ever advance. Benoit, he didn't advance, did he? He played the game. He's a great guy, kept his mouth shut, didn't create any waves. Where did it get him? Where did it get him, Dave?
WWF.
He ended up in the WWF, and now he's at least getting the chance.
Have you ever? My hat's off to him. He should have done that a long time ago. My point being, Dave, have you ever heard of wrestlers quitting on guaranteed contracts up towards of $500,000 to go for no big guarantee? Like, you ever heard that?
It's very rare, but don't you think that also at this point in their lives, because you're talking about those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Malenko's actually 40 right now.
Oh.
But Eddie Guerrero and Benoit, they're both about 33, and it's kind of like if they didn't make their move, they were going to lose their prime years.
Exactly, Dave. Exactly. When I was down at WCW, it was a waste of my life, my personal time. It paid in that, but what I'm saying, my wrestling career, to do the right thing. The time is now for Chris Benoit. Hand him the ball. Let's see what he can do. It's time for him to run with it. They're stagnant down in WCW, and I'm glad. I'm very happy for him, and I like watching them, that they made the right move. It took a lot of guts, and he did the right thing. I just hope he gets used right in the WWF.
What's your thought, having been there, and what's your thought on as why, I mean, is it just that because sometimes I think it's like that the brass at Turner is so consumed by what they consider star power that they consider, like, no matter what the business is, the guys that they have on top, because they were once stars and they did draw money at one point, a lot of them, most of them actually, that they must still be stars. It's kind of like, they have that TV star aura, and then a young guy, they'll just dismiss them because, I mean, there's, as we all know, you can always find fault with any wrestler, and unless they've proven it somewhere, you can always go, well, has he ever drawn money? And the point is that we all know, unless you're put in the position to do so, nobody ever will.
That's right. They put the knock on you. I don't care if it's for drugs or he never drew any money. They put a rap on you, and they brand you that, and all the guys, they echo that, and it's like a wave. They put the rap on you, can't get anywhere. Vince McMahon, he knows how to create it. He has different guys work with Austin or different people, and they get that rub-off, so to speak, that I read on the Internet and in those terms. They create stars. They put them, they enhance them. You know what I'm saying? It's like athletic acting there, and it's a lot of action. It's totally different. They know how to use people. The Turner people, they're TV people. Like Hulk Hogan, I think they think Hulk Hogan's like Elizabeth Taylor in Hollywood, okay? I think that's the star quality they think of Hogan. He's made a name. He's made a few B movies. And I think they really think they have somebody. It's not... Nobody at Turner has taken the time in 10 or 12 years that they've owned it to really be a fan or to study wrestling because it's a very unique business. And no one's learned how to manipulate the carny people or wrestling people back, or how to draw money, what to do. No one's been a student of the game of wrestling, I think. I think that's their biggest problem.
There's people in the company who are, but they don't seem to advance either because it's always. Sometimes I wonder. I mean, it's just different people get the positions, and we've gone through, and you went through the different people. Jim Hurd at the very beginning.
He was a very nice guy, Dave.
He was a very nice guy. And I was friends with Jim Hurd, but the fact is he didn't know wrestling.
Oh yeah, but
and Kip Fry? I thought Kip Fry was a good guy too, and he didn't know wrestling either.
Okay, but don't you think those committees? I think they did the wrong thing. When I was hired there, I was promised a top spot: Ken Luger, Sting, and Flair. And Sullivan, Jody Hamilton, Jim Hurd, Jim Barnett. It looked like, those dogs playing cards, sitting around the table, with the dim light. All these faces bobbing their head, shaking their head, They all know the business. No one stood up for me. Jim Ross was there. I mean, they confused the Turner people. I don't know why, because it's so counterproductive, the game that they play down there. And it is a game. They're getting the money, and look where it's $61 million. Is that true? I heard it's projected they're going to lose $61 million.
Yeah, that's the projection for this year.
How can that be? How can that be? For God's sake, you own cable TV, you got satellite, you create it, you manipulate people. How can you not? When the economy is booming, how can you not draw people when Vince? It should mirror it to some degree, right?
Well, when the business is hot, I mean, you should. The thing is that they've created this atmosphere where one company's cool and one company isn't, and you know how the public is, especially when it comes to wrestling. Wrestling's either in or it's out.
Yep.
And
exactly.
It flourishes like crazy when it's in, and when it's out, it's like, man, you have trouble giving the tickets away.
Exactly. And they were papering people. I'd like to thank some of the guys on top. They didn't have to draw back then, and it was slow in the early '90s, but they're making big money. And they didn't draw then, and I guess they've come full circle. They drew it. Now they're not drawing now. How is that? Same guys on top.
We're going to start with Todd in Maryland. Todd, you're first up with Tom Zenk.
Hey, Dave. Hey, Tom. How are you guys doing today?
Can barely hear you.
Speak up, Todd.
Okay. I had a couple questions for you, Tom. The first one was sort of what you were talking about earlier in terms of upward mobility, because when I first started watching wrestling, was right around 1990, 91, and I remember seeing you would get like a push for a little while, and then you'd job to someone, or there was this whole like push where you had the winning streak, and then you just jobbed to Bobby Eaton at Starrcade out of nowhere, and then there was this thing where they did this pile driver angle with Lex Luger, if I remember properly, and then all of a sudden when you were coming back, it was like teaming with Johnny Gunn or something, and I was wondering whether there's anything more to it other than just sort of booking ineptitude and unwillingness to push young talent.
Dave, can you repeat that? I can hardly hear him.
Okay, he was just pointing. He was actually going through pretty detailed some of your career in WCW, where you would get like a push for a while. One time they did a winning streak gimmick with you, and then all of a sudden it would stop, and then you would get another push, and then all of a sudden it would stop, and then some of that might also be changes in bookers, because they would change bookers fairly regularly.
Okay, great question, Dave. When I was hired there, Ric Flair was the booker. He was the babyface booker, and I mean, he's the only one that did good by me. I got a push there for a while when I first came in. Then they teamed me with Brian, and that's what they said when I met with all of them around the round table. Two young baby faces, to draw the young female girls and, the crossover. And then all of a sudden, Ole came in. And then Ole got sacked. I think it was back to a booking committee, and Jim Ross was on it, Barnett, Jim Herder. Then I got a push there for a while, and I think it was, Flair was back in power too. Then Dusty came in. I got buried. They buried me with Dusty because Dusty wanted to push the natural Dustin, his son. Then Bill Watts came in. Bill Watts pushed his son. All the cronyism, the nepotism, that didn't help me out. And the funny thing, after 10 years, it's all come about the best Vince could do was put him in a fat man suit. This is Dustin, by the way. A fat man suit, give him makeup and a wig, and go to the ring. And now he came back, he floundered again. So the whole business of wrestling is corrupt. And hard work. I don't think Pillman's death, I don't think he was so happy happy with. I know he never wanted to leave WCW. I feel very strongly about certain things like this. Rick Rude said they don't take pills or get whacked out because they're so happy. They manipulate in wrestling, and they play a very nasty game. I feel very strongly about it. How come WCW or WWF doesn't help out Melanie Pillman? Where were they? I'm sorry, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but there's a lot of things that I feel very strongly about that should be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to run off like that. Just rake my eyes, Dave.
Yeah.
Todd,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Todd.
Okay. My other question, I was just referring back to actually what you're saying, Tom, about your tag team partners. I was wondering who your favorite tag team partner was.
Who was my favorite tag team partner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The favorite tag team partner in and out of the ring was Brian Pillman, far and away. We had a lot of fun. That's when he was single, and I was single. We were running around having a good time in the ring and out of the ring. We just figured, hey, if they're not going to use us right, we're going to have fun after hours. So we turned up the heat going out and had a great time. So they didn't wreck our fun, but they wanted, or Ole, I should say, wanted us to quit because guys shouldn't be making $156,000 when they could get the Rock and Roll Express or other guys that worked for them over the years for half that. They want to manipulate. They didn't mess with Luger or Sting, by the way, just the lower end. Okay? They had to control people. But as far as potential, Rick Martel. He was a good friend. I got let down because he got a different contract than me, and it was about money. But Martel and I had great potential, very similar in look, good body structure. I think we'd have gone unparalleled. I knew it was over after 6 months. It was just unfortunate with what went down there.
Why do you think Luger has stayed on top all these years with all the different bookers and questionable amounts of talent?
Pardon me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that what happened was Luger was brought. I can almost answer that. Luger was brought in by Jim Crockett in 1987 or 88, whatever year that was. I think it was 87.
Yep.
With the idea that he got a huge contract after his first year in Florida, and they had decided he was, people had been convinced he was going to be the next Hulk Hogan, so he was in that spot.
Yep.
And they never took him from that. Up until today, he was never really taken from that spot.
Why is that?
I think it's just because he had the spot.
Yeah.
So, it's like I said, Vicious. It's like, they put you in that spot, and then sooner or later the people just accept you in that spot. Whereas a mid card guy, they're just hard to give you that boost.
But don't you think, like in the WWF, they can build you up and then they beat you on it? Build you up for 2 years. If you go after a year or 6 months, the people or anyone, let the people decide. You give them a little push if you see star quality and talent, and let them run with the ball. You've got to be put in that position to draw money or to be popular. You don't get over by getting beat.
WWF, the one thing with WWF is they're willing to take guys and go to the top with them. But even so, even in WWF, I mean, if you really think back at even like The Rock and Triple H, okay, from day one when those guys came in the company, management of that company waved a magic wand on both of them, and it stalled many, many times, but they kept waving that wand, and eventually they became the two biggest stars in the industry, as they pretty much them and Austin are right now.
Why do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
But I mean, it was one of those things where. I mean, I remember when, before Rock had his first match, there were people in the WWF who told me that this guy's going to be the number one guy in the company. And you could tell when they first brought in Helmsley from WCW, where it was John Paul Levesque. I mean, they gave him gimmick after gimmick after gimmick. And eventually he made it, and I don't regret, and he's great now. But it's still the same thing. There's a lot of guys who they didn't wave the magic wand to because they weren't, I see with those two guys, it's, big guys with good physiques. And, good hair. You know what I mean? Hello. Is everybody there?
Yep.
You're there. Is Tom there?
Somebody.
Tom.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, sorry. I was actually just about to leave. I was going to leave you with a quote before I left.
Yeah, hold on. Is Tom there?
Uh-oh.
Tom
is not there. Okay, Todd, you go ahead, and we'll try to find Tom.
Okay, just after Russo's Superman effort, where he actually was longer in the figure four for longer than the average length of a match on Nitro, I have this quote back from March of 1999 in the Raw magazine. Vince Russo himself. It's automatic. When the booker decides that he wants to become a television star, the rest is downhill. I'll sign up on that.
Read that one real loud, because I think Tom will really like to hear. Tom, did you hear that quote by any chance?
No, say it again, please.
Read that one. He'll appreciate this one.
Vince Russo, March 1999. It's automatic. When the booker decides that he wants to become a television star, the rest is downhill.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's
to a certain extent. If you have one.
Go ahead,
Dave.
Yes.
The booker decides, but I mean, some people, it's like throwing money into a furnace. You know what I'm saying? They just don't have it. It's like some of the sons. If they want to push their sons, don't push them ahead of their time. You know, they lose a lot of respect in the locker room with the boys getting pushed over someone that's paid dues or has talent or has a better body or can work better. You know what I'm saying?
Doesn't everyone pretty much think that realistically Bill Watts Bill Watts, in the attempt to give his son a jump start, basically ruined his son's career, because his son has never gotten another break because he's deemed Eric Watts.
Exactly. The fathers set their sons up to fail, so to speak. You know, they put him over their skis. He wasn't ready for that spot. Yeah. And Eric told me one time that his dad said if he got a degree, he'd get him in the business. And maybe the sons, that's their dream, to follow in their dad's footsteps. But it seems the dads always have big shoes to fill. Look at Eddie Graham in Florida. Look at Greg Gagne.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's just, look at the Von Erichs. You know? Look at the Von Bischoffs, Von Flair. You know what I'm saying? I see your stuff. I like it, Dave. It goes on and on. I'm not, okay. They have an argument, okay? It's like Dusty said about me. The word got back to me from Dennis Brent. What does Z-Man's daddy do for the business? Well, my goodness. I mean, I showed I had a good attitude. I did jobs. I went with the program. I didn't quit. I'm no quitter. I'd have ran the floor scrubber down at CNN Center for $3,000 a week. Come on, Dusty Rhodes. I mean, it's just really silly. Eric Watts, he's a good kid. I understand he's in Japan. I read the Observer. And how's he doing over there?
He got banged up a lot though on the first tour.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, I think it hurt his knee and his elbow real quick. You were been there. It's a hard style there.
Oh yeah, it is. It's like, when I went back there after WCW, it was like, oh my God, I'm in over my head. It was okay in my 20s and early 30s, but time takes a toll in wrestling. I mean, I couldn't compete, and I didn't have it in me to do that again. You know what I'm saying? To do that style, you have to come off the top rope, crossbody, drop kick off the top rope, go over. They want you to do a plancha outside of the ring, hit the barricades, flip over, take that bump over the railing. You know what I'm saying? Give them some action, And anyone that knows wrestling, it's a young man's business. These guys now in WCW, it's like slow motion,
Well, Tom, you're actually younger than a lot of the headliners there. Now, when you walked away, okay, I don't see your name on indies anymore. I mean, it's like you walked away, and it was like you really walked away, and very few guys ever have done that.
Well, life goes on. I love the business. I think it's a shame what they've done to it. I think they should all be ashamed of themselves. Who can look Ted Turner in the eye and say, yeah, I really did you right, Ted? Or Siegel. Give me a half an hour with Siegel, I could clue him in. I mean, my God, what they're doing there's no excuse. What about that big-name talent? Why aren't they? That's what the TV should be jammed with, I got a different life now. It was frustrating. No one picked up on it. I thought going through Jim Hurd, Kip Fry, Bill Watts, someone would have picked up on it. Somebody in the Turner organization would have got clued in. That's a heck of a company to work for. After what I did for AWA, out to Portland, to Montreal, to Martel's promotion, getting lied to about money, Dino Bravo's promotion the year before. I traveled around, Japan 9 times. I paid my dues and then some. I feel very strongly about what I'm saying here.
I think some of the Turner guys have been clued in, but they've been clued in by the wrong people.
Oh, is that it? You think?
Like, the older guys saying this is how it is, these guys can't do whatever.
Well, don't you think that then the other guys just bury them and say, this and that? They trash them too? It's the nature of the beast, right?
Yeah. It's
or is nobody credible?
I think whoever is in charge is credible at that point. And then there's always, I mean, one of the things with WWF, of course, is that Vince is the guy.
Yep.
And ultimately, like, no one can backstab Vince because it's his company. And in WCW, one of the things is that whoever's in charge, everyone works at backstabbing them, knowing, because they're all temporary. The wrestlers outlast, the bookers and the administrators.
What happened to that Bush? Bill Bush.
Bill Bush was in over his head and
who got him? He was there from the early '90s in the accounting department, right?
Right. Yeah,
okay.
Same guy. Yeah, and then he was put in charge when Bischoff was sent home.
Yep.
And then the numbers were real bad. And the thing where they had that day where Benoit and Malenko and Eddie Guerrero and all those guys, when they all and Perry Saturn all went to WWF, and he let them go in that manner.
Isn't that a sign?
Yeah, that killed that ultimately I think is what killed him.
Oh, okay. So he took the heat for those guys leaving?
Yeah. Although it was the advice people gave to him, and I can tell you that he was given the advice that if you give Benoit the world title, he'll stay, and then the other three guys just let him, and Douglas as well, just let him go because we don't need him. Benoit will stay. We'll give him the misread Benoit because Benoit just handed the belt back and left.
I didn't know that, really.
Yeah, that was really the mentality that was going down there. I mean, Bush was told, Bush was basically told that, the only one that means something is Benoit, and we can keep him by giving him the belt. So they gave him the world title. While this whole controversy is going down,
he was asking to leave all weekend.
Yeah, he spent all weekend, threatening to leave.
Yeah.
So then they gave him the world title, and then that next day, he basically, they basically told the other guys to leave.
Yep.
Just, leave Nitro. And they said, and Chris goes, well, if they go, I go. Well, you're the world champion. You have to defend the title. And it's like, well, if they leave, I leave. And then it was just like, so he handed him the belt and he left.
Whoa, what a dirty game.
And then a couple weeks later, he was on WWF TV, and that's the deal. This is something that I never had a chance to ask you, and I'm kind of curious about. I think we talked a little bit after this happened, but now it's 6 years later, and it's a totally different perspective. Looking back, since you were actually a part of this trial, what are your thoughts as far as the Vince McMahon trial, your role in it, and just everything that happened? Because it was all going on, and we used to talk as it was going on, and then it was over. And looking back, I don't know, how do you view everything?
Wow, what a waste of money! The government spent a waste of money on trying to get him. I don't know what was going on there, but everyone knows that Dr. Zahorian was around, and I think my testimony, or what seemed to me, is that you could get draws. I think they wanted to tie in that you could get money was made available that you could get draws to see the doctor or whatever. And I don't know. Drugs are a part of our society. Wrestlers now, Dave, as you well know, we've talked about drug use and anabolic steroids and the stance on that. They're a felony now. You can't get them, but Mexico, maybe Europe. But the guys now are huge. They're bigger. Growth Hormone, I've heard that name around. I mean, guys are huge on TV. I mean, WWF, WCW, I don't know. What did it change, the whole deal in McMahon? I'm not familiar with his side of the story or whatever, but they flew me in from Japan to testify. They really blew it for me in Japan, the United States. I didn't want to testify. I don't have a problem with the guy. He can run his business the way he wants. But, yeah, it just really caused me a lot of aggravation, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
What? As far as what did you feel they were wanting you to say, and as far as the cross-examination and everything, how do you feel that all went? When it was over, you're just glad it was over and just go, I don't ever want to do this one again.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, why are they messing with me? I quit. I left. I mean, and then it just keeps reoccurring. They sued me for leaving, breach of contract. They bullied me like that. They turned my life upside down. Then all of a sudden, years later, this whole deal, about Vince McMahon and Zahorian and steroids, it was common knowledge. All the guys, everyone knew about it. It was like, oh, man, how did he get off? All of a sudden, what was the final disposition on the case? It was just thrown out? The judge...
The jury voted him not guilty of conspiring with Zahorian, which was basically... Okay. That was how that one ended, and they had another one of distribution with... actually, what it was Zahorian mailed steroids to Vince.
Yeah.
And for Hogan. And so they wanted to charge Vince with distribution. And it came out, and I mean, no one denied that everyone basically admitted that Hogan got steroids sent to a friend of his. Hogan got steroids sent to Hogan.
Yep.
From Zahorian. Hogan got steroids sent to Vince McMahon's office, where we'd go to the office and get the steroids.
Oh, okay.
So they tried to get that as kind of Vince distributing them to Hogan, and it's kind of a fine line whether he did or he didn't. But it's not a fine line of what happened. I think it's pretty clear what happened. But the fine line is like if
wasn't Vince's argument that they shared?
Their argument was that they was not that they shared. I guess that they shared. Yeah, I mean that's kind of how it was put. I mean it was the deal was that they were trying to charge Vince with distribution because it was mailed to Vince and then he gave them to Hogan. Okay.
Yeah, but they were like buddies, right?
And they were buddies. So the idea was that they were trying to say, which they were, is that they would get the steroids, open the package, and divide them up. So it wasn't like it was a distribution.
Yeah.
And it turned out that whatever you would determine that never really actually got tried. The jury never voted on it because it happened in Connecticut, and the case was in what was it? It was in New York, in the Eastern District in Queens. Was it the Eastern District of New York? So they actually didn't have jurisdiction of something that happened in the office in Connecticut, and so that's why that case couldn't have gotten a conviction. So what they did was they tried to say that at one point, one of the steroid packages that Zahorian sent to Vince gave to the limo driver who drove from Connecticut to the Nassau Coliseum, which was within their district, which was in the jurisdiction, to give to Hogan, but they couldn't prove that ever happened. And in fact, what was the most embarrassing part of that one actually is that the package that they alleged was sent. Okay, was sent on October 24th. I believe the year would be 1989. I could be wrong, okay? But anyway, it was October. I remember these dates. It was October 24th that Zahorian sent the package FedEx to Vince with the steroids, right?
Yep.
And the show at the Nassau Coliseum that Hogan supposedly got the package was October the 18th. And when I found that out, watching the trial, I'm going, how can you make this? I mean, how did it get all the way to a trial when the dates don't match?
Oh, no.
So it went that. I mean, we got it that far, and that was, I think, the saddest thing watching that because they had like an argument for conspiracy. It wasn't very strong, but that distribution argument, it was just like, how could they claim? I mean, the distribution thing, they never had it within the district, and then the thing they had within the district, the dates just didn't match. It was impossible. Unless there was a time machine in those days that Vince invented that we didn't know about.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how things happen, but if they were buddies, and I'm sure Hogan and Vince were, it's wow. But didn't they have a grand jury and they spent all this money and subpoenaed people?
Oh God, yeah,
everyone.
They spent years on that case.
But how did that fly? Who was the United States attorney? Something with an Irish name, maybe something with an M?
Sean O'Shea. Sean O'Shea and was Tony Valenti, right? Those are the guys.
That's it. And McDivitt was for McMahon and Laura Bravetti, right?
Laura Bravetti was one scary woman.
Oh, yeah. I'd take steroids from a trash can. She said about my character, it was like, oh, my God. And she, after it was done, she kind of winked at me, like after she tried to light me up, and implicate, that I got steroids from my dad, who was a pharmacist, or family members. They trashed me, and then
they trashed you.
Huh?
They trashed you.
Yeah, big time. So, I mean, it wasn't a pleasurable experience. It's like, oh, my gosh. I mean, how nasty they are. But, I couldn't believe it. The whole thing, I just couldn't believe he'd go after McMahon and have that weak of a case. McMahon's attorney, they slam-dunked him, Sean. Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Do you want to know something funny, though, that came out after the case?
Love to.
Okay, is that the key witness in the case was, what was her name? Do you remember the secretary's name?
Oh, no, I know who you're talking about. I read it.
Oh, man, the name escapes me right now. Vince McMahon's secretary for a long time. She had a journal, and it had, like, all these logs, and there was a lot of steroid references in her logs, a lot of them.
Okay.
So, anyway, the secretary was approached. There's some articles that came out after the trial, one in Village Voice and one in New York Post.
Yep. And
the secretary was approached by a guy who claimed to be an agent who wanted to do a movie on Vince, and also claimed to be a 60 Minutes producer at the same time, okay? Yeah. And so he got close to her.
Yep.
And was talking to her, going to represent her, and this and this and this and this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who he was?
Who?
Secretly, no one knew it.
Who?
The husband of Laura Bravetti.
Oh, no.
Yep. And when Laura Bravetti cross-examined Emily Feinberg.
That's how she fit in. Oh, no, that was her husband?
It was her husband. And so when I see you weren't there, but I was actually there the day that Emily Feinberg was on the stand. And I mean, Laura Bravetti, I was like amazed. I thought Laura Bravetti was the greatest attorney in the history of the world. She had ESP. She knew the days that like Emily Feinberg was like on vacation, and she knew everything. And I'm going like, oh my God, this attorney is the most well-researched attorney. And she just ripped Emily Feinberg on the stand. And then when it was over, like I don't know, it was like a good year later when these stories came out, and it was like this light bulb hit, and I go, no wonder she knew everything.
Oh, my God.
So anyway, there's like that little... there's a lot to that trial.
I have no more questions, Dave. That's great. Oh, that's a good one. That puts all the pieces together.
Real quick before we go back to the calls, sure. A lot of people have asked about this one. What's, as far as like your deployment in 1987 with Tom Zenk, what's your side of the basic story? My
side of the story was Rick's greed. I mean, Rick... You know as well as I do, the guys, everyone makes their own deal. And Rick went down there. He went behind his partner's back. Dino Bravo, Tony Muley, Gino Brito. That was his partners. He put money in the business. It was going down the tubes, and he bailed out. He told me that he was going to go down there and make a deal, Can-Am Connection. He was going to feed the idea to Vince, which he did, and he liked it. And Vince said to wear all white trunks. He wanted all white. Okay? So... Rick came back with a contract for me to sign, and it didn't hit me until I remember this now reading Dynamite Kid's book. There was $25 he got paid at TV. I don't know if my contract said $25 or $50 for TV. And it was like, that's the only consideration monetarily in the contract. I said, Rick,
his original contracts, yeah.
I said, yeah, it was primitive. I said, Rick. And up to that time, I never signed a contract with Vern, with Don Owens, with International Wrestling in Montreal. Never. And here I'm supposed to sign it. I said, hey, Rick. I said, no. I said, I'm not going to say, hey, listen, I went down there, I went to talk to Vince. He didn't know who you were. He browbeat me, gave me that whole spiel like the old-timers, how they manipulate. And he really was charismatic and had a lot of fire when he was doing it, And I said, well, I'll sign it. Because I knew there was no money on the deal, and I'm sure I could get out of it before the merchandising hit, boring their attorney just to be stubborn. They were bullying me. So that's why I left. Rick, he made the wrong judgment. The old-timers are guys who think you should have stars in your eyes. Most wrestlers are too lazy to work for a living or simply have never done anything but wrestle. I love the WWF. I had a great time on the road. I liked the lifestyle. The money. I'm embarrassed for Vince what he paid me. Didn't he know? But I suppose Rick said he had me under control. And the French Connection, Patterson, Garvin, Rene Goulet. All those guys are agents of his company, and, that's how they play a very, very tough game up there. No one gets over on Vince. He doesn't sell. That's just the way it is. Martel, he swerved me, And, it's too bad. I mean, he said that I had a big head. No attitude, no big head. I asked him 3 different times. I said, what'd you make last week? What'd you make for WrestleMania? Same as you. And then I read in his interview he did with you, and he said that Vince wanted him as a singles when they had Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man. Oh, yeah, everyone knows Rick's a real great interview.
When did they stop doing those TV contracts?
Huh?
When did they stop doing those TV contracts when you only got paid like...
It was when, I'm not sure about this, but I think that was when Hall and Nash jumped in 96.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I talked to somebody that was there in like 94, and they always said that for TV you only got paid like $250 because they would go, we're putting you on TV and getting you over, so, we're not going to pay you big money for that. We're doing you a favor here.
Well, no, they said, I think now it has to be different because almost all of it's TV. Yeah. But I mean, I remember even not all that many years ago, unless you were in the advertised main event at the TV taping, you never made any real money doing the television match. Because I remember, like if there'd be a big house at the Cow Palace, just as an example, I remember one time they had like a big sellout house, whatever it was, $170,000, which was a big deal in those days.
Yeah.
All of the guys underneath got their $50 or $100 or whatever the money was, and then the guys on top, which were Hogan and whoever he was working with, actually got main event money from doing that TV taping because theoretically they drew the house. Everybody,
Yep.
But wasn't say. But I mean, as far as guaranteed money contracts in WWF, I think that they started doing the downside guarantees in '96. Well, let's see. Pillman was one of the first ones who got one actually.
Yeah.
When Pillman left. Yeah, he was one of the first ones who got a downside because he jumped from WCW and they needed to do something to make him jump.
Oh, man. Well, he had Jim Ross in his corner, and Brian used to work Jim Ross. I got my game face on, Jim Ross. You ready for TV? He was real good. And Jim Ross is a sucker for big guys. He falls into that syndrome, and especially football players like Doc Williams.
That was always Ross's guy. Williams,
sure. Yeah, football. Ross wants to be happening, finger clicking, yeehaw, Jim Ross. Hey there, pretty boy. But anyway. Yeah.
Okay, let's head to Nick in New Jersey. Nick, you're next up.
Oh, hey, Dave.
Hey.
I have a question for Tom.
Yeah.
I understand that he worked in both the WWF and WCW. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I was wondering what the big difference is behind the scenes, how the two are run, and what are your comments?
That's a great question. Okay. In the WWF, it's business. They're right down to business. There's no girlfriends. There's no dog. Nothing's discussed except wrestling. They've got a product to sell. Boom, boom, boom. You talk to Patterson, Gurria, any of their agents, and this is the big difference. Patterson will sit you down. I remember Tiger Chung Lee and maybe Iron Mike Sharp or someone was a tag team one time. Patterson explained the way it was going to, we're going with these guys, the Can-Am. He just was really fiery, and everyone had respect for Pat. But that's the way the business works, because Pat was a big main event. He drew a lot of money. Anyway, he told them how they wanted the match to go, to bump, to fly around, to make us look good, because they were going to go with Rick and myself. And if there was any questions after the match, we're going to come back here and talk about it if it wasn't the way that they wanted it done. In the WCW, Mike Graham comes in, Z, we want you to go out there and we got to get Vader over. We got to get a hot heel. They give you the bullshit, and, it's just sloppily run. Ted Turner's got deep pockets, and a lot of people have taken advantage. They don't run it like a business. For a public company, I mean, they got to be accountable. They're running the bookers and that. When I was there, they run it like their personal business, like it's a family deal. They should develop a professional management team down there. Forget about the BS as wrestling's a special business. Nepotism, cronyism, there's a whole track record of it. I don't know how they can't see it by now. I mean, let Flair take the company. Sign the company over to Flair. They can't live without him. He took the belt, showed up on Vince's TV. And then he came back and signed for more money. You can't kill Flair. Flair's the man. Woo! There's nobody at the chemical company that goes, nothing but, woo! They don't go 2 times, 3 times. No, they don't say it. They don't say slap nuts. They go, woo! Z-Man, woo! That's what they do. You know why? Because Flair knows the business. He loves the business. Okay? He comes through my TV. He chokes me in the living room when I'm having a few cold ones watching TV. The only reason why I tune in is for Flair. I told that to Jeff Merrick, too. He's the same way. I'm a mark for Flair. Pillman was. Because he's the best. It's not, bro, I rode down the mountain and, brother, come on. Flair's the guy. Sign the company over to him, okay? That's my advice. You really, does that clear anything up?
Yes, that helps.
Okay, brother.
Okay, thanks.
Right on.
Okay, guys, it's time for WF Daily Trivia. Here's today's question. Who has the highest, and if you read The Observer, you know the answer, so this isn't a difficult one. Who has the highest main event sellout percentage of anyone that has ever headlined Madison Square Garden, or ever headlined it more than a few times anyway? Maybe, one for one doesn't count. Okay, so anyway, you can do that. And we're back here with Tom Zenk. We're, of course, always here with Brian Alvarez as well. We got a lot of emails and phone calls to get to. Let's go to Bob in New Mexico. You're next up. Hello, Bob.
Yes, how you doing today? My question was, back when you were in WCW, back around in 1990, I can remember back then where they had a lot of young guys that were I thought had a lot of potential to be really talented guys and could have been something bigger than they were, like Terry Taylor, Brian Pillman, Brad Armstrong, Matt Bourne. Of course, I know about some of the things Brad and Matt went through. Looking back on that, what do you think is really necessary to get the talent built up so that they can go out there and draw? What was really missing back then in WCW to get that done?
That's a good question. I'd have to say the Booker's agenda, okay? When I was there, when I first signed, I remember Shane Douglas, Johnny Ace, Lion Bryant, these guys, like you said, that they got lost in the shuffle. Dusty had an agenda. Dusty was pushing himself and Dustin. The bull drop in, baby. Dusty couldn't see past his own face. They run it like it's their company. He already had put the Crockett to bankrupt. I mean, how many chances does he need? They push the guys that they can manipulate and control. That's what it seems to me. And Ted Turner has deep pockets, and some guys don't even have to show up to work, from what I understand, even now. Johnny Ace, he went over to Japan, and he's never come back. Shane Douglas, he had to take another route. He signed a year contract, and he took off.
Tom, real quick, just reminded me of something. You were Shane Douglas for one match, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I was a Mexican. And, no one knew. Nobody knew.
And yet Shane's back in WCW again.
Pardon me?
And yet
You said Shane's back in WCW again, yeah. Yeah, he finally got back after all these years.
Exactly. But he had to go away for a while. Now, couldn't they have taken Shane and built him up slowly, and then only job to some of the top guys only here and there and not on TV where it would hurt you. But you got guys waiting in the wings in case some main event star gets injured, and a talent like Shane, he's an athlete. He could just fill in a spot. Pillman could do that. They never groom people right because some of the top guys will kill off their competition. Just like after WrestleMania 3, Ricky Steamboat, a classic example. What happened to him? They gave the honky-tonk man the belt. Maybe Ricky Steamboat stole the show at WrestleMania 3. That's the match I like the best for wrestling, and I remember him, doing a slide under the leg, baseball slide. They had a fantastic match, but I think some of the top guys kill their competition. Don't mean to ramble.
WCW right now.
Well, it's been the same. It's been the same, and even to an extent, WWF right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
It's not as bad in WWF right now, is it? But with WCW, I mean, the thing is like we're talking about. It's like here's Tom, who's been out of the business for many years, and there's a lot of guys on top. Basically, they're his contemporaries, or a couple of guys that are a few years older.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the same guys on top, right?
For the most part, yeah. I mean,
for how many years? Since the mid-'80s? 15? Where do you ever get a 15-year run in the business?
Yeah, well...
Where do you get, no rotation, same guys on top, they're not drawing money, same guys there. How does that work? Unless, I guess we're playing the game, or what, do they got a special handshake, or, a certain sign, or what do they got, a little fraternity, or, what do they got going on? Something, because it's the same cast of characters. That's what I got to believe.
Okay, Bob, anything else?
Yes. One other question. I mentioned Terry Taylor, and of course he's still in the business, and he's still backstage with booking. Just wanted to get Tom's opinion on Terry Taylor, and would Tom think that Terry Taylor would be a good person to be put in charge of running a company like WCW?
Yeah, what were your thoughts of Terry Taylor?
Terry Taylor? Okay, perfect. This is a great question. He's at the top of my list as a worker. He got screwed over worse than me. A guy like that, handsome, good-looking, he dressed the part, he played the part, he was a nice guy. If you had one in front of him, he would say nothing. He played politics. He's a great guy. He was a better worker than I could ever dream to be. We had great matches, and that's what I think, but it never went anywhere. He was a great worker, but that's one guy I can always, any day that I feel, bad for myself or my career didn't take off like I thought it should have, Terry Taylor. Then that brings me to reality. This guy had talent. He knows the business. He's a straight-up guy. I heard one guy say Terry Taylor is too honest for the business, or naive, or whatever. But then I
don't think Terry Taylor's naive at all.
I don't think so either. But you know what I'm saying? How they slam him. Or I've heard he's a stooge. So I've heard a lot of bad things about me, and I don't mean nothing personal by that, Terry. But he'd be the guy. He would be the best choice. I think Terry was raised I think it's all what you learn at home. I think he came from a good family, good upbringing, and yeah, I think he would be a lot better. Or I'd welcome that than anyone else so far. I trust him.
At least he has no kids, and he does, and he's a student, and he is a student of wrestling.
He loves it. He loves the business. This guy loves it. I didn't have that love like he had. Martel had it. I think Vince McMahon loves the business. I know Pat Patterson does. There's certain guys, it's in their blood. It's in their blood, and he's a student of the game. Terry loves the business. And he's not second generation. What's he going to do worse than Bill Watts or Dusty? I mean, come on. I mean, Eric Bischoff. I mean, look what he's done to it. There's no accountability. It's just, it's very frustrating. It's so easy, and they complicate it, or,
I think the people who run the Turner thing, I mean, like, the one thing with Bischoff is that he was there for the big run.
Yeah.
And then
he stole talent. That's all he did. Who did he create? He stole Hulk Hogan, who Vince created, and he got Hall and Nash. Okay?
Yep.
He stole those two. Okay. How come the power plant didn't put out anyone? Dallas Page, do you think that was the right thing to do with a 36 or 39-year-old guy to train him? How did Vince miss on him? How did anyone? He's the Forrest Gump of professional wrestling. Two knee braces? Come on. What do you think Lou Thez or Harley Race? How many? 2 knee braces? And he's a champ? Come on. You can't fool me, and I can say what I want. It's my opinion. This is entertainment, right?
Yeah.
But,
real quick, I want to mention something. This is from Scott in Maine, and he said that he wanted to know if you have any good road stories about Brian Pillman. I have a couple questions like that.
How much time do you have? How much time do you have? Oh, my goodness. It's at the Waldorf Astoria, okay? We're there. You're laughing, did I tell you? Okay, we're at the Waldorf. Huh?
I don't know it yet.
Okay, we're at the Waldorf Astoria, the best zip code in the country. Most expensive real estate. We're up there for the doll convention, the Galoob doll convention. Okay, so Brian was single at the time. We were both out roaring around Manhattan. So he gets a friend, meets a friend, this chick, beautiful blonde, and we go back to the hotel, and had met some other girl that was at the doll show that day. So I'm in my room. We split up, and usually our deal was to leave the doors open, in case, you needed a toothbrush or some dental floss or something, that we could walk in, or, a soft knock. Anyway, I'm in there with this girl, and one thing leads to another. All of a sudden, after about an hour or half hour, Pillman comes in, and he slides in, and they're naked. And Brian says, "Hey, Tom, come here a minute." So we had been out, had a couple of beers, and I said, "What is it?" He goes, "I'll leave the light on in the bathroom. I want you to come in and hold my feet. I need to get some traction. So slide down low and hold my feet at the end of the bed." I'm going, oh, my God. So anyway, that was the story.
Oh, my God.
Wild and crazy times. Pillman was a gas. He was a wild man, and, yeah, he's truly missed. It's too...
What did you think when you got the word that when he died?
It was awful. He died in Minneapolis here.
That's right, at the budget tell or something.
Yeah, what a way to go out. Well, I talked to Ed Sharkey about. I said, what was going on? He said he got there early. They were in Winnipeg the night before, and he just walked in. He was like in a daze, and then he said he was like a guy. I called to him, "Brian, do you need a ride?" He just was like walking off into the darkness, Eddie said, and that was it. That's the last anyone heard or seen of him.
Wow.
That was terrible, because we had good times, bad times. When you hang around, it's not normal to hang around another male for 12, 15 hours a day to travel. You know what I'm saying? So it wears on you, the road anyway, right? Training, you have to diet to look good, all the BS that goes along with wrestling, the manipulating, the mind games. And, yeah, he was a good partner. He was a good guy. It's just a waste. I mean,
were you there when Brian and Bill Watts had their problems? Were you still there?
Yes, I was.
Because I remember that, because that was like Bill Watts just tried to totally bully him to make an example, and I remember Brian was just like, okay, just job me out. I'm keeping my money.
Because we used to laugh about that. I mean, they thought their mentality was so naive or stupid how simple Bill Watts and Ole were to manipulate us, to beat us, and we're going to quit on that kind of money when we never had that kind of money before to make in the business. All our years finally paid off. They were going to job us out, but here he pushes his son through the roof, but his son's getting paid at training camp. I mean, how is that supposed to make a guy like Pillman feel? He had just signed the contract. He was on cloud nine with Kip Fry. The night that we had that match down in Florida, was it Jacksonville? Pillman and I had a match.
Oh, the singles match, yeah.
Yeah, that was the first night that Bill Watts came in. So Brian and I, there was.
Oh, you had a really hot match.
And there was no follow-up, was there?
That's right.
I never had any follow-up with Terry Taylor, Chris Benoit, Brian Pillman. They did it to humiliate me by having the little guy beat me. It was fine, but we tried to steal the show because Kip Fry said, you get $5,000. The best match gets $5,000 or whatever the figure was. We're going to split it and give the referees some money. So that's what Brian and my motivation was. And Bill Watts had just come in and gave that lecture in the locker room and lit everyone up. Went back to the old henchman style. I'm going to run this, like promoters used to talk that trash to guys. Now they can't because, publicly owned companies. But back then, that's, Bill just ran it like it was his own personal property. He got on there and he, told everyone this and that. But how do you think Pillman felt just signing a contract and then right after it, a week or two later, Kip Fry is gone, Watts is in, and then he's busting his chops?
Yeah, it's like, okay, Brian, you're going to have to give back this contract, but then we'll push you. But if you keep this contract, you're going to be in the opening matches. And it's like, oh, God.
Yeah. Can you imagine? It's
like, they're going to pay whatever was like $250 or $300, whatever it was. It was real good money in those days.
Yeah, it was like
he was going to be the highest paid opening match guy in the history of the business at that point in time, or he could be pushed and make like maybe half the money. That was the way it was split to him.
Yeah, but that's the old timers mentality, right?
Yeah.
That we'll make you a star. It's like Vern used to say to me, I made you a star. I put you on my TV. I'm going, TV's a byproduct of your business. What are you talking? He's just like, oh, God. They try and manipulate it. It's a real strong game they play, and they talk down to you. Very condescending, and that's just old school. That's the way they did business.
Let's go to Dave in Pennsylvania. Dave, you're next up.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. I think, Tom, you've been a great guest. This has been one of the most entertaining shows I've listened to so far.
Well, that's what it's about, baby.
I have to say, keep it up.
Talk to me.
I'm pretty involved in the Internet and wrestling writing. I write under the name of Soups for WrestleArena.com. Just because I don't use my real name, just because I don't want to have my personal email interspersed with, Vince Russo marks blaming me. But anyways...
It's too bad, Brian, you should have done that.
I know.
We all should do that. But, anyways, I looked, Tom Zenk was on tonight, and I was like, I haven't heard a lot about Tom Zenk, lately. But I have two questions, really, but the first is, I looked on Yahoo, and I put in Tom Zenk, and this website comes up. It just says Tom Zenk, you click it. It's the GeoCities website, and it has, columns and shoot interviews with Tom, and they're contradicting a lot of the things Tom is saying here. Like, there's one about the whole WCW Sullivan situation and trashing Ric Flair. At the same time, I'm getting Ric Flair's demands from Tom. And there's things about the Radicals in there and that whole situation. And I'm thinking, well, Tom's situation was explained to you, Tom. I just don't really understand. Is Tom a part of that website, or
is there a disclaimer on the website?
It's a GeoCities website.
What is it? www.tomzenk.com?
It's like a GeoCities. It's like a Tom Zenk GeoCities website.
So what do you?
It's not TomZenk.com though.
It's not TomZenk.com?
No, it has links to that.
Okay.
But it was just kind of bizarre because it has things in there about you just trashing Ric Flair, about something about Ric Flair's facelift and weird stuff.
So how do you feel about the things that I've said about Ric Flair right now, about the business and he's the man? Is that accurate?
No, that's what. It's like.
Is it accurate?
It's just contradicting, It's just.
So what's your point?
I'm not being negative. I just want to know if Tom said those things or not. I don't have any comments on it. It's at a valid website. Like, that's something he's involved in. Because I'm not sure if it's fake or not.
Something on the Internet is not true.
Uh-oh.
Pardon me? What's that?
Something on the Internet that's not true?
Yeah, hello?
The way that happened. I just wanted to know, because he's plastered all over it with these comments, and I just wanted to know if he was a part of it or not. There was somebody.
Well, this is the up-to-date version about Ric Flair. Are you a Ric Flair fan?
Hello?
I can't really hear.
I can't either. So let's go to another caller.
My second question is this. With Flair.
Hello.
Hello, I'm here. My second question is with Ric Flair.
Okay, if Ric Flair, I know what you're getting at.
Flair matches. I don't want to knock Flair or knock you. I've seen hundreds of Flair matches.
Go ahead and knock
I believe I've seen you wrestle Flair. Well, my point is, what was it like the first time you wrestled Flair?
I only wrestled him 2 times.
Match? Did he explain to you things beforehand, during the match? What spots did he call? Did he call his trademark spots? How does he do that? I'm just interested in how Flair calls the match and works the match.
Well, isn't it pretty much the same?
How that worked?
Isn't it pretty much the same match all the time? I've heard all the boys in the locker room go, "You see one Flair match, you've seen them all," but it's worked. It's worked for how many years? 30 years. He's got all that TV time. He's the man. Okay. The facelift part, I see what you're trying to do. Okay, the facelift part, what I'm saying is he gave his life. He's done what it takes. He loves the business.
Mm-hmm.
There's no denying it. That's more than I ever did. I wouldn't even have liposuction if I was fat. What I'm saying is this guy lives, bleeds. It's like I'm thinking about promoting him from Bishop Flair to Cardinal Flair after the blood stripped on him.
Flair.
Look, pardon?
You can knock his booking.
I'm not talking about
Flair tried to put himself over. But Flair, whether you knock his booking or not, he pushed wrestling. And he did it well. I always liked Flair as a booker.
I think we've got common ground now. That's right.
Weren't very good for him.
He pushed wrestling, and he knows
Flair, that was the best booking ever. Maybe Flair's on top? Flair should be on top. Flair's been buried for 10 years now.
What do you think? What do you think about what do you think about what Bischoff and Hogan are doing to him now? They're sitting back, waiting in the wings, don't you think?
I just think it's bad for business. It's bad for them.
That's right, but do you know any other business that's so counterproductive? What they're doing to WCW. Ted Turner, it was fantastic for wrestlers when that came along. Look at how many guys have made livings by that. What happens if that folds? That's what they're not. They're going for the quick kill. You know what I'm saying? They could do a lot better when it's hot, when wrestling's hot now. How do you lose $61 million? How do you lose $17 million in 1999? Jeff Merrick, he told me that. He made the point. Yeah, that's really wrong. It's disgusting. Flair is the guy. Flair gets ratings. I look on the Internet. You can't believe everything you read on the Internet.
Oh, I do not.
But what I'm saying is, it all points.
The Internet is shit.
The ratings don't lie. It's junk. Why doesn't the WCW, what they've always told is wrestling, why don't they go back to it? Let the people, give them another product. They had the best wrestlers, Benoit, Perry Saturn, good bodies, guys that could go. Give them 15-minute matches. Mm-hmm. Give them a different product. All that, the sex, TNA on TV. Do you think, I remember seeing wrestling when I was 10 years old and said, hey, I can do that. That's your formative years. You think that's good for America? Americana to see that kind of stuff? Give them a different product. They're out of the South.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Dave. I appreciate it.
You get intensive fan mail, Tom.
Are they trashing me, Dave?
No, they're not. They're saying that you were better than. Do you ever meet Bad News Allen by any chance?
No, but he called Vince McMahon from Danny Crawford. Told me this. You're gonna like that. He called Vince McMahon. He's the devil in a suit. I laughed so hard, Crawford, when he told me that in Japan. No, I heard he's a real character, a good guy.
Bad News Allen was one of my favorite interviews. We had him just not all that long ago, about 2 weeks ago, and people are like, the emails are basically like, this is as good as Bad News Allen. In fact, one person said it's even better. So,
really? So
you're being compared to that's a pretty high standard. We had some good interviews like yesterday with Edge was really good too.
Oh, really?
A lot of them have been good lately. So
after this show, I know what the guy's talking about. That GeoCities, it's www.tomzenk, tomzenk.com. Professor Rod Dixon in Australia will answer any questions, and Lee McMichael down in Valdosta, Georgia. They're the webmasters. I know exactly what he's talking about. I had a brain fart for a minute there, but it's nice to know some people are reading the web page. That's how they can get a hold of any questions or whatever. Yeah. Was that a setup call, Dave? You wouldn't do that to me, would you? It was out on the East Coast.
I wouldn't do it.
Okay, but I'm sure he did.
We don't set it up, but I'm sure someone did. Yes.
Whenever Brian Alvarez is in there first for the name of the web page, it's always set up.
Yeah.
So that rant he was talking about, maybe I was trying to draw heat because, I'm a frustrated heel and trapped in a baby face body and face. So maybe I was trying to get a little heat to jack the numbers. Okay? Is that legitimate?
I don't know. Let's go to Adam in Brooklyn. Adam, you're next up.
Oh, hey, I just like to say I'm a big fan of Tom, and he's done some miracles like carrying guys like Van Hammer and Vinny Vegas, like in the past. And I was just wondering, since he worked with, Paul Heyman in the past, what does he think of Paulie now and ECW?
I don't know. What's with the tables? Do people like to see those guys go through the tables, or
that's like the real big thing right now is guys going through tables. Yeah,
that's just a high spot. What I mean, someone's going to get hurt, right? I mean,
people do.
The people
sometimes you know where you get hurt is like sometimes the table will splinter wrong.
Yeah.
And if it can get near your eye, that's the scary stuff with the tables. I don't know, Brian. What's your thoughts as far as the tables go?
I think last night on Thunder when Sting was given that Uranagi on the table and it did not break. That was
scary.
When the table doesn't break, that's bad news.
I saw once a Road Dogg in a match with, I think it was D'Lo Brown, but I'm pretty sure, but D'Lo Brown or whoever it was, might have been Al Snow, but it was I remember it's Road Dogg. He got power bombed on a table, and when it didn't break, I was thinking like, oh my God.
Broken ribs?
Like, he ended up being okay. He didn't miss any matches, but at that moment, it was just like, oh boy.
Really?
Yeah.
It can, someone's going to fracture something, or, there's no future, no longevity in that, but I mean, the fans, you've seen that once, here comes the referees in the ring, and, I refereed, Dave. I had licenses all over the country. I mean, I had a flourishing career as a referee. Dusty, thanks, Dream. He made me do that. But anyway, you pull out a table under the ring. Where does that fit into the picture of wrestling? I don't get that. I don't follow the psychology.
It's just what it is.
Do people really like that?
Yeah, they really do. It's like the big in thing, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it kind of hurts like the psychology of the matches, like with the Dudley Boys,
Yeah.
It breaks a certain aspect of it when you the thing about the table is everyone loves the break and everyone loves the anticipation of the break, so it gets over.
Oh.
But to me, the things that kill it is that it takes so long to set the spot up, and that like the guy who's selling just has to sell a ridiculously long time to make the spot work. So that's the negative of the spot.
That's what I always thought was kind of wrong with like Sabu, Yeah. Like I always thought he's a very hard-working wrestler. But a lot of his spots in his match are very, contrived and, like, ridiculous, and they're, like, take so long to do.
That's what I thought really hurt him when he went to All Japan, is that, like, I would watch him do this, and it's, like, in the context, that All Japan mentality where it looks real, and it looks like it's an athletic contest, and then you see those spots that take so long to set up, even though they're brilliant, they're great spots, it was always, like, in that context, Sabu, to me, didn't work. When it was in ECW, Sabu worked when he hit the spots. Where it didn't work is when he would, like, do the same spot 4 times in a row because the first 3 times he would slip, and then it was just like, oh God. Then to me, then it looks like that was when Sabu didn't work in ECW. When when sometimes he did work when his spots hit. It was spectacular stuff.
Well, in Japan, like I think tables mean a lot more. Like I was watching this Toryumon tape with Magnum Tokyo and Great Sasuke, and they did this like great spot where Sasuke does his his special over the top rope through a table, but the table didn't break.
Oh, but that's got to hurt like crazy.
Yeah, it's a Magnum Tokyo.
Oh, man.
But, dude, that's basically a dive, but you land on a table that doesn't break instead of landing on the guy catching you. Oh, that's...
Oh, like concrete, huh? Yeah. Wow, you can't make a living at doing that, huh? Ooh, I wouldn't do it.
Not for a long time.
No, wow. Yeah, I hope, someone's going to get seriously hurt, or I see on the internet, someone's going to die in the ring, or... You know what I'm saying?
Somebody just did on Wednesday.
What?
A week ago Wednesday.
Serious?
Yeah, it was an independent show. A guy landed wrong on a choke slam and broke his neck and died.
Oh God!
Yeah. I bet a lot
on a choke slam, huh?
No, press slam. I'm sorry. The press slam, and then he was dropped, and I guess he landed at a bad angle.
Anyone I know?
No, because I'd never even heard of his name. Right. Mark Mendlin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've been to a lot of Jersey All Pro shows,
Yeah.
Where they're coming down hard now.
Yeah.
And
I want to ask you about Jersey All Pro because I've never seen it. Tell me about Jersey All Pro.
About Jersey All Pro? Okay, like
as far as like you tell me about it and do they do stuff? Is there anything in particular they do that you don't see on the other promotions that would make them different?
Yes.
Okay.
They use a lot of mouse traps.
I hate that.
Yeah, I know. Mouse traps. A lot of fire, like setting tables on fire.
Like that flash paper?
No, real fire. Matches.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But WCW just used fire last night with Vampiro. They set that table on fire.
No, but one time I went, and the promoter's a wrestler, Frank Iadavia. You talk about him?
I know of him, yeah.
Yeah, he had this match where he wrapped his arm up in tape, right? And he, lit it, with gasoline or something, and then he set his arm on fire and did a clothesline.
Oh.
The guy.
Oh.
But then the fire wouldn't go out, so he was running around like crazy in circles, and he ran to the back where one of the managers put his arm out with the fire extinguisher.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
They don't even know how to put it out. You got to smother it with a towel. You got to kill the oxygen, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, and they're doing that. See, that's how people get carried away, that it's the adrenaline or there's, I don't know.
The guys who do it love it, you know? They're like addicted.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, you know that. You know about the guys that, that are addicted to the pop. I mean, that's why guys can't walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them stay a lot past their prime, and that really waters down the product, especially when they don't do jobs. What's with doing jobs? How many jobs has Flair done? And he's the most popular thing. Guys aren't smart enough to pick up on that. You know what I mean?
The Rock.
The Rock's doing jobs too. Well, The Rock doesn't have a problem. You know, the thing is it's interesting that you know what's funny now that I think about this. Think about this one.
He's got a ton of charisma though, The Rock.
Like no one I've ever seen almost.
Exactly.
Okay, but think about this. Do you know if you think about like a booker, okay, for the most part, should be the one who manipulates things like that. You know the guys. If you look at guys who booked a lot, whether it's Kevin Nash or Dusty Rhodes, when they're baby faces, the ones who are bookers are the ones who really hate to do the jobs.
That's right. That's right.
Dusty, like, I mean, you could say now he's 55 years old and he's wrestling in ECW and he put over Steve Corino. That's one thing. But, I mean, when he was in his day, that guy never did jobs. And, like,
And he took and he had the horseman feed. He could take on 5, 6 guys. Where do you think these other guys learn it from, right?
That's what these guys are doing all these spots
exactly.
from that we saw last night.
They're doing the Dusty stuff. It's like, oh, no, it's so simple, the psychology to figure it out,
Well, you can say the same thing for kind of like Ric Flair. I was watching, our video did a shoot with Vader.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how in 1994, Vader and Flair were supposed to have this cage match, the rematch from Starrcade. They had a really good match then, remember?
Yeah. The Starrcade match, that was a really classic match in Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah, and then Dusty Rhodes is booker, and then the week before the cage match where Vader was supposed to get back the title, or so he says, Flair became booker. And they changed the whole angle, and Flair won the title back, or kept the title.
Well, that happens all the time, and believe me, there are plenty of guys who've been told. I'm sure that Vader's telling the truth on that because that's probably how they would have done it.
Yeah.
I remember when was it Hogan and Vader in a strap match where Flair was the one who did the job?
Yep, in drag.
In drag, that's right.
Well, they just did that a couple months ago with Luger and Flair in the strap match, or Flair and Hogan in the strap match, and Luger got beat too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how they are. It's, people. I don't know the whole job thing. It's been Flair. He's proved it wrong. So it's just an ego thing and what they think. It's among the boys. It's all, it's really hurt them more than anything. They can't pull that in the WWF. But then you got the fool Bischoff that signed these guys that have say-so in their contract, whether they win or lose. Well,
Hogan's the one who has that, and Hogan's one of the best I've ever seen as far as being a manipulator.
Oh, really? I heard that. Pillman told me this. The last time I talked to Pillman was for like 3 hours on the phone one night, and he said that they were faxing the finishes to Hogan where he could check off. Is there any truth to that?
Oh, I bet that's true.
Yeah,
because he was Hogan. They used to do. This is the period when they were hot.
Yeah.
So this is like 96, 97.
Exactly. That's when he was talking about.
Okay, I mean, I remember that, they would come in and whoever was putting together the TV, whether it was Sullivan or whatever, he would put together the TV, and then, Eric and Hogan would come in and it would be, totally different. And then, I mean, it actually was doing very well in those days, but when when segments looked bad, then that was great was that everyone could point the finger. I remember, Brian, me and you used to talk about this.
Yep.
This was when Nitro was really falling bad, so this is when Nash was booker, and, every Tuesday, and these shows were much worse than the shows now.
Okay.
And Tuesday, it would be I would get phone calls from different people representing every faction. It would be the friends of Hogan would go, well, we just, it's like Hulk just did what he wanted. Hulk just did what he was told. Hulk had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
And the friends of Nash were, I know Kevin's the booker, but Hogan's doing it's all Hogan. It's all Hogan. And then Eric was just I gave all control to Nash. It was like this finger pointing every Tuesday morning. This was when the shows were this is when they really had to fall. Now it's. They're at this level and they're staying at this level, but this was when they fell from that mid 4s down to the low 3s.
Well, Dave, that's go back to Flair again, because when Nash first came in as booker,
yep,
they were putting on really good shows. The pay-per-view string they did Uncensored. That was a great pay-per-view. Spring Stampede last year, and as soon as they started to turn Flair into this crazy old man, everything right went down the shitter.
That was bad because Flair was real hot then. But Flair, part of that was Flair. Flair wanted to go heel. I don't know that he wanted to go in the insane asylum business because that was not a good one. But But Flair, Flair loves to be heel, and I mean, I know when Flair was a babyface and he was drawing ratings, it was like, I just want to be turned heel, work with Hogan, as a face, and they love that, they're comfortable with that, but it was, wasn't the right thing at the time, I didn't think.
Yeah, but don't you think Rick wants to go? You can't go back. It's all changed now. Rick wants to go back where you could draw with emotions, hot heel, boom. They love him. He's like the James Bond, jet flying, limo riding. That's what these guys at work tell me. They want to know about Flair, how cool he is. Oh, boy, he ran the limo, huh, Tom? Oh, these guys at work. That's what people, they're so out of touch doing their little angles behind the scene or Internet people. Not that the Internet's bad, but that's not mainstream America. They're not tuned into the pulse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what.
To humiliate Flair like that in a men's sport? No, come on. But Flair, they want to cheer for him. Heels aren't the same. They want to cheer the heels for talking trash. It's totally different, don't you think, Dave? Other than drawing heat or sit down, fat boy. You know how?
Adam, let me go real quick because we're running low on time. I want to get one more call in. Okay, let's go to Matt in Iowa. Matt, you got to make it real quick because we're running low on time.
Hey, Tom.
Hello.
I just wanted to say that I've seen your work in Japan before, and it was really great.
Thank you.
When you wrestling guys like Kawada kicking you in the face hard enough it'll make you cry. Well, have you ever considered going back?
That was combat pay.
Have you ever considered going back and maybe wrestling with the Saitama Pro Wrestling Company or something?
You want to go back to All Japan now?
No. I'll be 42. I burned a bridge back there. I didn't show up on a tour. I had enough. I was done. All I did to get booked back in Japan was to hide out. I didn't think they'd fly me back for the McMahon steroid trial. When I was done with WCW, that was it. Close the book. I can't compete with those young kids. One thing I was is an athlete.
Young guys.
I know my physical prime is done. After 36, if I'd have kept training or whatever, being big like that, but no. I'm not going to kid myself and, other people that think they're a freak of nature, whatever. But I say otherwise, I don't make my living at it, so I have nothing to lose. I'll tell the truth. No, couldn't compete like that at a work rate like those guys. Guys have it. There's no place in the United States you see action like that. All the high spots, boom, boom, fast, stiff chops. That's wrestling. I like that style, and I'm a fan of it. I prefer it because you don't have to think. There's no manipulating. You get on the bus, you look good, you train, you help the young guys, you just get along there. You have to get along on the Japan bus, touring bus. And if you can earn a spot on the bus, that's kind of prestigious. And you work for the company. That's where I learned to do job. It's part of their culture.
Don't forget, we'll be back here tomorrow at 6.